The big question that many people are asking is Britain going through a terrible crime wave? Is this country now worse than it used to be? On the lips of many people, judging by the evidence of their own eyes, their own experiences, anecdotes, and reports that they see in the media, most say, yes, there is a crime wave, crime has gone up, yes, this is a worse place to live than it once was. But against the tide of facts and common sense comes one warrior, that is Fraser Nelson, editor of the supposedly conservative magazine The Spectator, who is always around to drop some of the worst takes you have ever seen in your entire life. And it raises the question, is Fraser Nelson simply dense, or is he actively dishonest and lying to your face? I think a combination of both seems to be the answer, because not only is he lying to your face, he's also very stupid in the way that he does. What has inspired me to look into Fraser Nelson, who is one of this channel's least favourite people in the entire world, I would argue one of the worst people in the country, and that's against some pretty stiff competition. Well, it's the fact that I keep seeing normies on social media posting around this video, which came out at the beginning of nearer the beginning of the month, the 12th of September, as a summary of a larger column that he had produced for the Times newspaper. And it's Fraser Nelson telling you that crime is not experiencing a massive uptick since the influx of foreign invaders came into this country, and in fact is reaching a 25-year low. How does he have the stats to try to back this information up? He's saying things like knife attacks took a drop to a 25-year low. NHS hospital admissions due to knife attacks are reaching a 25-year low. And he goes on to make a number of other absurd-sounding claims, which many people that I have seen, people who don't look into this and don't want to trust their eyes when they walk into their towns and their town centres and see that they are completely desolate, worse than they've ever been, and they know people who've been victimised by crime. They don't want to believe that because, like Fraser Nelson, they want to believe that the multicultural project of Britain has been a resounding success. And I want to look into a little bit of why Fraser Nelson might want to believe that as well. But let's look at a little bit of the larger article that this is summarized from. And I'm going to read some passages from this. And remember, these are not my words. These are the words of Fraser Nelson, famous conservative, whatever that means in this day and age. He says, "It becomes impossible to believe what the facts do seem to suggest, that our society, for all its faults, is probably safer, richer, and better than any before it. Not just any time in Britain, any other civilization that ever came before modern Britain, the UK. Today, progress is the truth that dare not speak its name. Major environmental and social achievements are barely known, and when mentioned, universally disbelieved." And he goes on to cite things like a 53% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions over the past 25 years, which makes it so much better for me and everybody else that I know that I guess the housing crisis doesn't matter anymore. Massive wage stagnation doesn't matter anymore. Huge raise in inflation doesn't matter anymore. The fact that the government stole years from people's lives under the COVID regime doesn't matter anymore. Dropping birth rates of native children, that doesn't matter. Thank the gods, greenhouse gas emissions are down. Thank you very much, Fraser.
School sizes, unemployment, just the general breakdown of a high trust society that you cannot deny. If you live in this country, you cannot deny it.
My high street, which is completely dead, empty, filled with nothing but Turkish barbershops, phone shops, nail salons, doesn't matter.
Well, also, there's the perfectly straightforward evidence in my eyes and ears. I can remember walking around this country 25 years ago. I can see it with my own eyes and ears what is going on, and the country is becoming less lawful. And if he believes his numbers, it's only because people can't be bothered to report it anymore.
Well, that's where we'll get into some of the more detailed breakdown of why he believes all of this. So he goes on to say, most crimes have always gone unreported. That's why the Thatcher government set up the Crime Survey. That's the Crime Survey of England and Wales, asking thousands of households, specifically 35,000 spread evenly geographically, that is 1,000 households per county, if they have suffered crime, and if so, what type. It shows that over the past 20 years, that since the start of Strictly Come Dancing, I don't know why he makes that particular, is there some correlation being suggested here? Is there some causation? Strictly Come Dancing came out and we're starting to see a reduction in crime rates, but that's the kind of faulty logic that I would expect from Fraser Nelson. Robbery is down 60%. Bike theft and car theft have both halved. Burglary is down by 2/3. And all violent crime, according to the survey, it's halved since 2005. So these are the claims that are being made using the data that has been provided by the Crime Survey, which again is kind of an evenly weighted survey going out to 35,000 households across the country, evenly distributed from each county, just asking them. And there can be some benefit to asking these kinds of questions, especially in picking up unreported crime. But you also notice that this is, one, a very specific way of trying to count crime that should be measured up against other metrics of counting crime, and two, very limited in its scope, as I'll go on. And furthermore, just ask yourself this. Does that pass the sniff test? Right? When you go about your day-to-day life, when you read your local newspapers, when you interact with people on a day-to-day basis, do you feel as though things are safer than they've ever been? When you know that we have been importing millions of people from countries which are known to be war zones at the best of times, and demographics that when you see the crime rates of them in other countries like America, you see that they commit a disproportionate rate of violent crime. When you look at prison population statistics and see that people of the Muslim faith are overrepresented by about 3 or 4 times. Black people are overrepresented in prisons by 3 or 4 times, if not more. Does this pass the sniff test, knowing all of that? Or does this come across like somebody is telling you bold-faced lies and trying to get away with it? Because that's what he's doing. And we'll get onto the information showing that in a moment.
The evidence of my own eyes and ears, just my anecdote, living in the real world, living in reality. That's just not the case. And I wonder what the stats are, whether they're up or down since Strictly started on Islamic terrorist murders.
Or sexual assault.
What were they like pre the year 2000 against now?
Note that he's ignoring things like sexual assault.
Oh.
As well,
interesting.
Oh, really?
in this.
Oh, that gets skipped over, does it?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But he's got a lot of nice graphs which are included in this article because he likes to cite polls saying that people feel like crime is up. But I don't like...
because I can see it.
Well, Fraser Nelson disagrees with how you feel because he's got very selectively chosen surveys where a line goes down, which normally would break Fraser Nelson's heart because he only likes it when graphs go up.
Yeah, but it's not how I feel. I mean, I literally walked out of the office a month ago and watched somebody get stabbed.
Yeah, we've all witnessed crime firsthand. But the thing is as well, and this is another part of it, the way that this survey is distributed across the county, we all know that there are some places which have basically no crime. There are still some havens. Of course, Operation Scatter is trying to change that by putting in violent criminals into your next door neighbour's old house, by paying off landlords. But there are still parts of the country that serve as a haven where basically no crime is committed. But there are also parts of the country that are massive hotspots for crime, where a lot of crime spikes happen every single day. And so the way that this is distributed in this survey means that you will necessarily be under-reporting the criminal hotspots and under-reporting the crime that may be going on there, because that's maybe only 1 or 2 households over 1,000. So that's one way. He carries on to say, I'd also argue not just that the streets are safer, but that in general, this is probably the best time to be alive, ever. the best time to be alive.
So it's better than the 1950s, for example.
Yes, ask your elderly grandfather how things were back when he was young and his experiences then versus now, and see if you come to agreement with that. That is to say, if you could choose to live in choose any era to live in Britain, but not your place in society, you'd choose right now.
Who does he think he's kidding exactly?
Well, he got it past the editor of the Times, so
Okay.
presumably they thought that there was some kind of merit to this. NHS hospital admissions in England for all assaults, night assaults, bodily force or firearms. And again, I really dislike this use of going back only about 25 years as well. Because mass immigration did not start 25 years ago. Mass immigration really began sometime around the 50s and 60s. It was a lower number. There was a lower floods coming in, but even by the time you get to the 1960s, you have enough reason for Enoch Powell to be coming out and making statements about the effects of migrant crime, and for that to resonate enough with people on the ground that he becomes the most popular politician in the entire country. So
It is disingenuous. I wonder what the numbers were in, say, 1950. And the numbers are
a lot lower.
slightly down, but they're still really high. So what are you trying to prove?
And he goes on to say, and I think this is one of the big things that motivates all of this, is that he is absolutely obsessed with demographic collapse, and you can see him always talking about it here. Demography is destiny. We could be in a worse place because working age population is growing. Because he's absolutely terrified of the population dipping at any point, because he ends the article by saying the biggest problem facing any country is demographic collapse, and almost every country in Europe is bracing itself for a steep decline in its working age population, but not Britain. Alone in Europe, we're projected to grow at a normal rate. If demographics is destiny, ours is pretty strong. He neglects to mention how many of these working age people are actually coming into the country and working versus immediately claiming benefits. But that's neither.
He must know this is really bad faith. He must know that.
This is why I ask the question, is he just an idiot or is he dishonest?
Because I don't think he's an idiot. I don't like the man. I don't agree with his worldview and his takes and what he's doing. But he's not an idiot, is he?
Is it possible he's just simply never considered the possibility that we don't need to keep doing the big three, the NHS, the pensions and the welfare, the way we do now? Because that's the only reason you need a growing population, is because all three of those things are Ponzi schemes.
Well, are we really surprised when there is a very, very famous clip from 2017 now where he basically comes out as a proponent, an advocate for lying to people?
Really?
Yes. Where he says, as long as you lie to people that you hear their concerns about immigration, you can do whatever you want.
Really? He said that? I haven't seen this clip.
Oh, I'll play a bit.
You say it's famous, but I don't think I've seen it.
Watched her experience so far of her short premiership is if you persuade people that you're listening to what they have to say, that you don't reject their concerns as being bigoted or xenophobic, that if you talk in a language that is more in common with neglected voters than it is with the metropolitan fashionable elites, then that goes a long way. You don't have to come up with policies, banning immigrants or anything like that. All you need to do is to basically say to people, I hear your concerns. I mean, let's look at David Cameron. He actually, I think, did quite a good job here as well. Nobody expected him to win a majority in 2015, but he did. And he had a policy of cutting immigration by 2/3. Now, he completely failed in that target, but the fact that he had that target counted for a lot, because it meant people thought at least he wanted to control immigration. And there are a lot of parties in Europe right now, and governments in Europe, who wouldn't even say that they want to control it. They think that that is dark territory that they don't want to go down. Now, it's funny.
But are you saying that this is only psychology, that as long as you say the right things, people will appreciate that, and that actual results do not really matter?
I'm not saying it's only psychology, but I think a large part of it is empathy rather than psychology.
So that's about enough of that. Yeah, just lie. Just say you understand what people are saying and what they're concerned about, and then you can just do whatever you want.
So I used to listen to the Coffee House Shots Spectator podcast when he was doing it, and I found it both helpful and completely insufferable, because all of them on the Spectator, they've never had a thought that didn't originate from the liberal left. They think they're conservatives because they're slightly to the right of most of the liberal left, but all of their thinking is within the liberal left paradigm. But it was nevertheless helpful because they have a very close finger to the pulse of what people within that bubble think. So even though they're wrong about everything, it is useful for seeing what SW1 people actually think about stuff.
Yes, and again, with the fact that this guy is an editor of The Spectator, he has a regular column in The Times, he makes these short, informative videos that then get spread out by normies. This man is influencing people's perception of reality, as is his purpose. He is a mouthpiece regime propagandist. You're out there seeing your town has gone to hell, crime is up, people that you know personally have been victimized, people aren't able to afford houses. This is the guy that they roll out to tell you everything is fine.
Well, and the Spectator, by the way, is the oldest conservative newspaper in the world.
Yeah, skin-suited by these types.
Well, it used to be all right until he got hold of it, and then it took a sharp turn to the liberal thought bubble.
Which is no surprise. And on the actual article, I found this Substack post by a group called Trafalgar Analytics. Now, I do not know who these people are, but I did read through the article and found it very interesting. They've got a number of other articles talking about subjects like the grooming gangs and a lot of other analytic analysis of data. And they go through his article and just tear it apart. First of all, by tearing apart the legitimacy of using the crime survey for England and Wales in the first place, saying that he presents the crime survey as definitive proof that crime is falling, yet the survey's limits must be recognised. It's based on a random household sampling, around 35 respondents across England and Wales, averaging only about 1,000 households for each county. The broad spread means areas with persistently high crime are heavily undersampled, reducing its ability to capture concentrated hotspots. Respondents are also asked to recall incidents retrospectively over the previous year, introducing recall bias and built-in time lag before trends become visible. In addition, certain major crime categories, including fraud, online crime, and homicide, are either excluded or insufficiently measured by the survey. Right. So they just take out huge amounts of crime, are immediately removed because they just don't ask about it.
So I don't think Mr. Nelson, used that particular data set because he's stupid.
I think he used it on purpose.
Right, yeah. It doesn't make sense that he accidentally used a faulty data set.
I mean, it also goes on to say it doesn't cover multiple occupancy dwellings, including HMOs, which would also be presumably where a lot of crime might happen. It doesn't cover student accommodation, which is now where we're going to be housing some migrants, as I covered last week. And it doesn't cover care homes and a load of different types of dwellings. As the CESEW's victim reported, it's also impossible to be both alive and report experiencing a homicide. Equally, the survey excludes crimes without a specific victim, be it drug possession or crimes against the state. So it's just like there's so much, like 70% of crime isn't covered by this.
So, sorry, did you say in all of that these rapey migrants, they're going to be putting them in student accommodation?
Yes, I covered it as part of the Operation Scatter segment.
To save them the walk to their next sexual assault?
Assumedly so. Yeah.
Right.
Undergrads are probably a bit old for them.
Yeah, but it gets even worse, guys. Trafalgar Analytics is not the first to highlight all of these problems, they say. In July 2022, the Director General for Statistics Regulation at the ONS, Edward Humferson, suspended official accreditation status for it as a national statistic. This was not restored for the year ending 2023, nor the year ending 2024. Following the election of the new Labour government, accreditation was restored to the crime survey on the 24th of October 2024. So for 2 years, almost 2.5 years, until Labour comes in and they want to have statistics that they can point to say that crime is going down, this was not even considered legitimate as a national statistic that the ONS could use to report crime, because it is that faulty in its methodology for accurately showing you what crime is like in this country. But what they did instead is that they went through, well, the police reports of crime, across the whole country, which is a lot more robust because it's what the police are actually picking up, instead of what random people at random households that might be in areas that are veritable utopias compared to other parts of the country are just saying that they've experienced. And on that, they were able to determine here's an interesting fact as well. At least 50% of all crimes occur within 225 meters of a previously reported criminal location. So that just shows how condensed high crime areas tend to be, and why you end up getting places like some of the estates in Brixton, where it's just no-go zones. If you're not a black guy who's in a drill gang native to that postcode, then you don't go there, because they will try to kill you or rob you, because there are hot spots. So they go through here and they found out that the assessment of crime across England and Wales over the past decade differs from Fraser Nelson and the Crime Survey. Since 2015, individual categories of crime have shown different trajectories. So down is vehicle theft and burglary. Up over 50% is shoplifting and robbery. Up more than doubled is public order offences, possession of weapons, violence and sexual offences. And here's the graph that they made of that.
But it doesn't look like a 25-year low to me.
No, it certainly doesn't. Maybe if you expand it out back before 2015, maybe then you can see where it's a massive dip. No.
So, in Fraser Nelson's world, they were just asking tiny little homogenous zero crime villages if they'd experienced any crime, and the answer's no. But then when you ask the police, if you actually deal with crime, the answer's yes, it's up massively.
I mean, if you were to survey the bit of the country that I live in, for example, crime is unheard of, apart from people parking badly occasionally.
It's not necessarily that they explicitly go out of their way to ask those people. It's that it's a random selection, and the people asked from there. Their opinions count just as much as the one guy who they've randomly selected from a high crime area.
I wonder if Fraser Nelson or other people like him, whether they do have, in the small of the night perhaps, when they have a moment of reflection, whether they ever think, am I doing the wrong thing, morally the wrong thing?
Are we the baddies?
By peddling a false narrative which ultimately puts people in danger or ruins the country, ruins the fabric of our society. I wonder if he ever stops and
I think that
ruminates
Westminster
on that.
bubble is a titanium shell. I genuinely don't think he has any thoughts outside of it.
And look at this. He posted this himself without anybody pushing him to. And this should sum it up, his position. I've been a supporter of mass immigration, but it's lately been too much of a good thing.
What?
Too much of a good thing. And the reason for saying that is because mass migration was hiding in the statistics the welfare crisis that's been going on.
So it is the Ponzi scheme that he's entirely focused on then?
Yes. And of course, Ren just posted, too much of a good thing. We hate journalists for a reason, folks.
Yes.
Because even if it was the case, which it isn't, that all mass migration was some kind of incredible economic boon to this country, and if it was all just legal migrants coming into the country, it still wouldn't be worth it for the rape gangs that exploded in this country of foreign nationals who were hidden and covered up by the local police forces. That's not even to mention everything else that comes with the problems of reducing birth rates in ethnically diverse areas, dilution of English identity and culture, and the fact that this is our homeland, and I don't want to be replaced or displaced in my own homeland either, because they're allowed to organise along their group interests, and we're not, because Prevent don't want us to be able to do so. And there's just so many different times where he has said things like this, where he said, well, I want to stop the boats, but if we stopped the boats, what we should also do is then take in 3 legitimate asylum seekers for every one you deport.
Why? Why are you saying that? Why?
Well, because it would be discharging your moral duty as a strong country to the world's dispossessed, something that nobody ever agreed to or asked for who wasn't already in the elite halls of power, which Fraser Nelson, I assume, is. But we don't care. I don't care what you think our moral duty is to the world. It's not. You are completely out of touch, as we can see from this. This was another article back from July. The data leak, if you remember... Is this
real? Is that real?
This is a real article. The data leak was bad. Letting in Afghans isn't. I'm just going to remind everybody of the good work that the Centre for Migration Control have been doing in cataloguing all of the crimes committed by foreign immigrants into this country, including this now notorious graph, where we can see that Afghanistan, people from Afghanistan, commit sexual offences to such a ridiculous degree.
Per capita.
So can I just quickly add that, I mean, after we found out about the Afghan leak, of course, the Afghan practice of Bakubazi, where they basically sodomise young boys, is a thing. And it's considered a regular thing in Afghanistan, to the point where a new police officer will expect a boy to be given to him as a perk of the job, right? I had people get in touch with me to say, because we already knew that the military guys were told to overlook it. I had people get in touch with me, and I couldn't get anyone to go on the record about it because they were serving military or border force or something like that. I had people get in touch with me and say that is still happening. That is happening in the UK now, in these asylum centres. They're still sodomising young boys, and it is still the case that the UK authorities are saying, yeah, just turn a blind eye to it. It's their cultural thing. Just leave it be.
And could we have predicted this?
Yes.
Yes, because it turns out that particular groups behave in particular ways that are specific to them, and just because you can say not all, doesn't mean you can't make predictive. You can't make predictions.
So almost certainly the case with Fraser Nelson is he knows one or two like good immigrants, people who come here and have started a business or something like that, and he has lunch with and dinner parties, and he thinks you can just scale that up to 1 million a year. Whereas, like, no, all the people who were going to come here and start businesses and actually add value and stuff, we've drained that pool a long time ago. Now we're just getting people who are just sitting under a tree in Eritrea or being sports teachers in bloody Ethiopia who come over here and add no value. But he thinks there's just a limitless supply of people that he goes to his bloody liberal dinner parties with.
Yep. See, I would be inclined to agree with you, and you're probably right to some degree, but also, though, again, he's not an idiot. He's not. So he must also know. Yeah, but that a lot of them are a danger.
There's a level of smugness which can override any sort of clear thinking.
Well, I mean, this is.
I'd call him just an enemy.
Oh yeah,
just a fifth columnist.
Oh, 100%.
This is his go-to line. This is something he keeps hammering on recently, where he's saying, "Oh, we've never been a better time to live in this country," despite the fact that foreign nationals, these are people who are foreign in this country.
Connor's great on Nelson, actually.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Connor's good on Nelson.
Connor goes for him, doesn't he?
Remember, foreign nationals are people of foreign ancestry who just haven't been given a passport yet. So people who have the passport don't get included in these, even if they're foreign, because we don't typically take in the ethnicity data, or at least it's not published publicly. They commit a quarter of all sex crimes. Right? That's despite being, 9.3% of the population. If it was representative as a proportion of the population, that should be 9.3% of the crimes. But no, instead, they more than double that. That's 150% increase over what it should be.
Yeah, Connor just says that's evil. What Fraser Nelson's doing is evil. I mean, he's right. He's right.
Think about the economic benefits of over 1 million migrants in this country claiming benefits every year.
Yeah.
1.15 million foreign-born individuals claiming some kind of benefit. So it's all worth it. Thank God we've got all of those working-age people coming in here and immediately taking our money. That makes it all worth it. So yes, I brand you, Fraser Nelson, a dishonest liar and an enemy of the British people.
Who are the men that pick for scraps amongst the ruins at the end of history? You should know, because you encounter them every day. Between the towering buildings of a fallen empire, we find the Fellaheen, the historyless men, who know nothing of the turning of the cosmic wheel and find themselves outside of civilization itself. cut loose from the great chain of being, they represent the loam into which our dying culture will return. That is, unless we choose to take up the burden once again. This Fellaheen condition is the subject we explore in issue 4 of Islander magazine, on sale while stocks last and available worldwide at shop.lotuseaters.com.